Welcome for everybody for making the trip in. I think everyone knows that the logistics, the restrooms are all to the left if you have to use them. And then on your badge, if you look on your badge, on the back of the badge, there will be a table number. So when we're done here and Mark's done, we're going to have Mark do a presentation, and then he's going to do a question and answer, and then we're going to go over into the lunch area next door and get a chance for everybody to kind of catch up and mingle. We got a great mix of people here. We got people that are, can you hear me? We got people that are existing customers, people that are evaluating Citrix, and so it's a great mix. So just real quick, we are EDCI. These are the companies that you might know us by: Electroline, EDCI, and EDCI IT Services. So this is the EDCI Citrix Executive Briefing with Mark Templeton, who is the CEO and President of Citrix, and we'll get to that in a second. As far as who is here, I just wanted to do some introductions of the people that are here from Citrix. So if I call out your name, if you can raise your hand or stand up or jump around a circle or whatever you want to do. We got Joe Zaremba, who is Wisconsin Field Sales Manager.
I'm not going to do circles.
Okay. We got Mike Villars in the same role, different territory in Wisconsin. We got Ian Moore, and Ian handles the networking, the cloud products, etc. Within Citrix for our territory here. And then a gentleman that does a really good job, keeping us current and educating and working with us as a partner channel manager, Clark Richter. And then I think probably more people here know, just about everybody knows Joe Piper, but he is the senior field engineer working for Citrix in the state of Wisconsin. Those are the Citrix people that are here today. Wow, that's a big list. So here's the EDCI folks that are here today. Our Executive Vice President, Nick Cephas, in the back. My name is Bill Rabb. I'm the Citrix Practice Manager. So I own the Citrix practice. That's why I get to come up here in front of you today. So, and then the guy who is my right hand does similar things to what Joe does, but doesn't for EDCI, is my lead architect, Wes Clark, over here. Right there, the guru of Citrix. And then we have two business relationship managers that are handling a lot of the people that you've been working with them. You know who they are. They've been with EDCI for a long time. We got Dawn Surprise over there, and Dave's right up front here, Dave Lane. And then some of the other groups that we have are represented here besides Citrix. So I'm going to just introduce these folks. So if you have any needs in these areas and you want to make contact with them, I want you to know who they are. We did recently start an IT services practice for staffing, and the head of that practice is Greg Opperman, back in the corner. Jack Karst recently came on board with us about 5-6 months, right, Jack? And Jack is back here, and he's our contact center practice manager. Another new person to EDCI, and the common theme here is we've been really growing a lot and adding folks, which is a good thing. Roger Knaby is right back here. And he is the data center practice manager. And I'm going to just briefly explain what those are and then move on. And then Gary Fisher is an architect in the data center practice. Does a similar thing that what Wes does, but more on the architecting data centers. And then we recently hired a full-time support manager, Phil Stens. He's here today. We have 24/7 support, and he's managing that whole support help desk. And then, of course, a big round of applause for the person who puts this all together for us, Joanne. And I'm sure you'll point out if I forget something, right, Joanne? Okay. So just real quick then, the Citrix practice focus on desktop application server virtualization and the Citrix networking products. That's what Mark is going to be talking about today, so I don't need to spend a lot of time on that, but if you need any assistance and after this session in evaluating some of the visionary and the subjects that Mark's talking about today, please contact us and we can call and work with you to help you evaluate it. The data center practice, we partner with Cisco, IBM, and Microsoft to provide LAN and WAN solutions to support your network infrastructure. I mentioned that was Roger and Gary's area. The call center practice specializes in aligning information technology with the enterprise business strategy to optimize contact centers. I think we've got a couple of people in here that are actually using the i3 product, and we just recently virtualize that product, that call center product, actually within Citrix at Swiss Colony. So it's a good combination of having remote call center people and having them be able to work virtually. IT staffing is just that. It's specializing in infrastructure, application, project management consultants to help you with short and long-term, staffing needs. And that's really taken off for us, I think, over the last 4 or 5 years. A lot of people got lean. Now there's all these projects that need to get done, right? So Greg is more than happy to help you in that area, right, Greg? Our goals with the Citrix practice is to make sure that we just hired our 7th senior Citrix engineer, which is pretty impressive in Wisconsin. So by far, we have more talented, highly trained engineers in Citrix than anyone else in the state of Wisconsin. And we also have, I mentioned with Wes, as an architect, we have a very excellent ability to provide strategy analysis of, what are your business use cases, where are you trying to go, the mobility, the cloud, all these wonderful subjects, how do I get my hands around, where I am today and how I can get from point A to point B. We do that in assessments and designs, proof of concepts, where we'll actually put it out in your environment. We help you with ROI analysis, implementations, and then I mentioned with Phil, post-implementation support. So we make sure that once you've got the systems installed, if anything hiccups in them, you've got somebody to call and respond quickly to you. So we do have the largest number of certified architects and engineers in the state of Wisconsin. I didn't update this from last year, but this list keeps growing, but it's just a name of companies that we've done business with. If your name's not on here, another reason it's sold you, I'm sorry, but full. So anyways, but a lot of happy customers using Citrix. Because Citrix in this last line here, I think is the key one. 99% of the Fortune 500 companies have a footprint of Citrix, so it's a phenomenal success story. And personally, I know that most people at Citrix and most people in the industry understand that success story. A lot of us tie right back to this man, Mark Templeton, and what he has done to be a visionary in this industry and move forward virtualization and the adoption of these concepts into businesses. Mark joined Citrix in 1995 as a VP of Marketing. Revenue was about $15 million at the time. I didn't have the current numbers, Mark, but I said we're approaching $2 billion. Are we there already? Right, okay. So promoted to president in 1998, promoted to CEO in 2001, and like I said, Citrix is just, year after year is growing and doing wonderful things to help us run our businesses better. I think the employee count is probably low too. That was kind of last year's number, but the company keeps growing with quality people. So the only thing that I wanted to do before I bring Mark up is, I know that Mark is always, every time he comes, we have something to give him. And we've given him Badger, we've given him Packer, we've given him all the championship teams, right? So it's pretty hard to match what we did, but I know that Mark's philosophy is always racing to stay ahead of the competition, and I know that Nick had a team this year that raced around Lake Winnebago in a cycling event, so we wanted to make you part of the EDCI racing team here, Mark. So if you come on up, we'll give you your...
Thank you. Thank you, Bill. That's great. Really love that.
Not just need a bike, right?
Yeah, no, I have a bike. Yeah. I don't ride as much as I should or would like to, but thank you very much for that.
So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Mark and let him take over.
Thank you so much. Well, good morning, everyone. And Bill, thanks for the kind words. And I get way more credit than I deserve for Citrix because, we have an amazing team and have had an amazing team in this company for a long time. I joined the company when it was 6 years old, and there were some core ideas that the company was founded on. And, the only credit I take is for really taking those ideas that were really good, that I'll talk a little bit about, and make sure we nurtured them forward. And with the kind of culture and the kind of customer and partner relationships that allow you to grow and do honest, honorable business over a long period of time that builds revenue, and it builds relationships and friendships, and and all that matters to us. It's not just about revenue. So that's just a comment about what Bill said. My mother would love that introduction, of course, And I love, by the way, coming to Wisconsin. I think this is the 4th consecutive year we've had this event. And what I love about coming up here is the intimacy of the environment, et cetera, the culture here in Wisconsin. I have, spent various parts of my career up here, which I won't bore you with now. And so it's a real joy to come up here and see you as customers and prospects and, those interested in kind of our point of view on the world. Nick and the team have done a marvelous job, and this is an example of partnerships over a long period of time that are also friendships. And that's one of the reasons I come up here. And when I come, I try to, I never know what I'm going to say is kind of what I always tell everyone, because what we're always trying to do is bring our freshest point of view to you and show you how that point of view is manifested in what we're doing. And hopefully the point of view helps stimulate your thinking, your point of view, because there are huge transformations going on. And I think, as you try to plan for the future, the single most important thing that you need, whether you're an individual or you're a company or you're a nation, is you have to have a strong point of view about the future, and it has to be strong enough that you're willing to bet on it and act on it. So it's not about just writing some things down and saying, check, I did that part, go back to sort of what I was doing. I mean, that's a core belief at Citrix. And so I thought we'd just sort of bring all of that to you. And I've got a couple of demos that we've never shown before in public, so that should be a little bit of fun for us as well. So let's jump in here. Everyone knows that Microsoft photograph, Albuquerque, they were leaving Albuquerque to go up to Washington. Well, this is the Citrix version of that. So this picture is, from the early 90s. I was not a, employee of the company at the time. And this is the kind of a, awesome and ragtag group that started this amazing company 23 years ago. And they started the company with 2 ideas. The one that, and they both have lasted the whole time. The first one is an idea about culture and what kind of company they wanted to be. And if you look at, wearing shorts and sandals, and this is not sort of your typical kind of culture. It's a culture that is special around people who want to work together with a common vision, common values, senses of integrity, respect, and a lot of things that we continue to believe in, very, very deeply as a company. So I know all these guys, and in fact, I just saw Ed Iacobucci. Some of you know his name. Here's Ed Iacobucci. I just saw him 2 nights ago, as a matter of fact. Roger Roberts, the guy that hired me at Citrix, our CEO at the time that I joined, and just an awesome team. Here's Brad Peterson. He was the 7th employee of the company. He's still on the team. Terry Treader, he's still on the team. A number of the guys retired. Here's Jeff Muir. He's still on the team. Great people. And the second interesting idea was a vision for bringing value to customers. So I'm going to show you the first collateral that the company had, okay? So, the technology here, Windows, DOS, OS2, and the headline, can your business solutions easily adapt to change? So the idea underlying Citrix was all about helping customers adapt to business change, okay? And obviously on a platform of technology. So, this is an important, core idea as well, because, we have a culture, we take care of it, great place to work, we deliver great employee value, but the other piece of it is customer value. And I think the maximum customer value you can bring is the ability to adapt to change, because that's all that business is about, is adapting to markets and evolution of markets over time. So encoded in the company very deeply, as you can see. One thing that hasn't adapted to change is my hair, okay? So that's when I joined the company, and I actually had a nice head of hair, and I haven't adapted to the change very well. But, this idea now is expressed in this way, that we believe in and think the world should be set up so that, people can work and play from anywhere, okay? It's a big idea, and it really recognizes if you can work or play and play from anywhere, then you can adapt to just about any kind of business change, including cultural change that comes in the form of the new employees that you're bringing in from the 13th generation, the X, the Y generation, the Echo boomers, et cetera. You know, there are a lot of labels for these generations. And so, you know, this is our core sort of vision and remains very, very much our focus. So just a little bit to give you a sense for the company. We do have about almost 7,000 employees now. And most of you know Citrix as the virtual app and desktop company. That's this desktop business, and this year it'll be about $1.4 billion. It'll grow this year around 15%, but that's only about 63% of the company, all right? About 20% of the company is our online services business. So we're one of the biggest SaaS providers in the world. If you hope you like the new GoToMeeting ads on television. I think they're just absolutely stunning and beautiful and making a big impact. That business overall this year will grow around 19%. And then we have a huge cloud business, cloud networking and platforms business, growing around 21%. And really all of this technology is for the purpose of powering mobile work styles and cloud services. That's what Citrix is about today. And bringing all these technologies together, from how you do meetings online and on-demand support, all the way through what happens at the desktop, all the way through what happens in your private cloud and in public cloud. And so our focus right now, sort of that near-term focus, is we're trying to broaden the reach of our web collaboration. We're now number 2 in the world in web collaboration. So we have opened up in Europe in a big way, and we're doing things in Asia as well. So a lot more reach. Driving hard on the mainstreaming of desktop virtualization, going from more of a niche type of solution to much more of a mainstream solution. We'll talk a little bit about that. And then we're helping a lot of companies, both service providers and enterprise, build out private and public cloud. So that's, if you said, what are you working on like right now? These are the 3 big things that we're working on. And the purpose of all this is to help you do reinvention, all right? Because we look around the world, there's a lot of change in every dimension, and it's time to rethink some things, rethink a lot of assumptions that everything has been built on, including computing, including the business models we have, including how we hire and train people, how we onboard, et cetera, et cetera. And so we think there's this massive multi-year thing going on around the reinvention of work, how people work, reinvention of compute, and how and where we do compute, and reinvention of business. And I think you just have to look at kind of our quote jobless recovery process and see that there's a core reinvention of business. I mean, it's not that we're not doing well. I think our economy actually is doing better than when you watch on what you see on television. It's just that a lot of the expansion, hiring, et cetera, is across borders that aren't defined by national boundaries anymore, right? And this is the first time we've come out of a recession where we've had the kinds of tools, the reach, language skills, cultural skills, currency exchange, kind of all those things that make, the flow of commerce but across boundaries possible. And I'm not sure, our politicians quite understand that yet, but it is what's happening. And so this whole notion of reinvention of how we do business and business models is going on, and we think that these kinds of ideas that we have are core to helping you reinvent all 3 of those things. Invent all 3 of those things. So let me digress for a second, all right? I'm a huge believer in role models, okay? Role models. I mean, I grew up in my parents still live in a 1,200 square foot home. My dad has a small factory, employs 6 people today, right? And I worked in that factory as a kid and so forth. And, and I was blessed to meet some people along the way that influenced me, but, I saw them as role models. And I think, it's good for individuals, it's good for companies. At Citrix, we've looked across the industry and used other companies in the industry that we admire as role models. And I think there are great inventors that we can use as role models as well. And one of those is Thomas Edison. And if you've ever read Nick Carr's book, The Big Switch, have anyone read it? Highly recommend it. It really is. It's easy. It's fascinating. It'll really give you an amazing perspective. But a piece of the book talks about Edison and sort of how Edison, gets credit for this end-to-end system and how that, actually took place over time. So the first thing that Edison did is design the thing that generates electricity. It was called the jumbo. That's what he called it, and it was huge. All right, it was a huge thing, and it was designed to generate power for a given business. And he imagined that you'd put these jumbos around all these businesses, and they would have power and so forth. Then over time, what's happened is, the idea of the jumbo has turned into kind of a heterogeneous set of sources of power. Now we generate power in all kinds of ways, ranging from coal to nuclear and solar to wind, etc. And more sources of power. And in fact, he invented, some other ways to generate power. And a colleague of his said, you know what? We've got to have a way to aggregate this stuff. So the next thing they invented was something called a rotary converter. The rotary converter did AC to DC to AC, okay? And it was the first notion of being able to aggregate multiple sources of power generation into one output signal. And so that was good, but now how do we actually distribute this to customers and bill for it? So that led to the next invention, and that was fundamentally the grid and the ability to measure, monitor, and actually bill and have different rate plans, et cetera, for light industry, heavy industry, et cetera, residential. And then the last piece was, how do we standardize this voltage, et cetera, so that we can have this nice, simple outlet in the wall where you can plug in an appliance. So this was the Edison, this is the end-to-end, power system that he invented over the course of time with colleagues, partners, etc. That really, expresses the whole idea of aggregating a full range of sources, then being able to distribute them in an on-demand way to simple endpoints that, it's as simple as just plugging in. So a toaster, television, whatever. And this idea is, very much underlying kind of what we believe about enterprise computing, and that there are actually, three really fundamental strategic sorts of things that the new enterprise computing, will be built around. Not a rotary converter, but a cloud connection broker, so that you can connect public and private clouds, or private and private, or public and public. It really doesn't matter. It's cloud to cloud. Okay, being able to then bring that together to feed into what I like to call a unified service controller. So one place where all this stuff comes in, and that it can then be aggregated and then metered out based upon demand. And then at the end point, a universal point of service. So there's, this is the service point. If you have, another service point, that's not our responsibility. You can plug in a Honda generator, I suppose, at your home. That's not the responsibility of the utility company that's doing the power generation. So these three ideas are, I think, fundamental to how enterprise computing will progress over time. And it's really core to, kind of how we're thinking about this, and it's still what drives GE, right? At the back end, they have this expression, imagination at work, still making all of these amazing power systems, right, that then get distributed to bring good things to life for all of us as end consumers. All right, so it's still at work. These core ideas of Edison are still at work in GE's philosophy and their business strategy. So, to parallelize what we're doing is this one picture. So we talked a little bit earlier about all these businesses that we're in to power mobile work styles and cloud services. because we want users to have a great work life and a business life by being able to share and work anywhere with anyone. And we want IT to be able to build and connect cloud services and cloud to cloud in any way you wish, and then connect all this stuff together with tools that help you aggregate and deliver all these things as a service on demand. Okay, so just to frame the big picture out in terms of what we're trying to do. And so from a product point of view, this is kind of how things parse out. It's real simple, all right? So at the back end, all of the infrastructure that we provide that allow you to build cloud services, whether it's a desktop cloud with Zen Desktop, or an app cloud, with Zen App, or some of the cloud platform services, and we'll talk about some of these things, Cloud Stack and Zen Server. It's all about the back end infrastructure. At the front end here, to be able to share and work with anyone, all these great tools we have for delivering apps on demand and collaborating on demand, Citrix Receiver, GoToMeeting, etc. And then something new that we'll spend a little time on is Cloud Gateway, which is really this aggregation point, which gives you this single point of service and single point of access where you can kind of impedance match all the things that happen on this end in the sort of driving business, driving work styles, etc., that are mobile, and things at the back end that more and more you want to turn into cloud-like services. And then obviously our NetScaler cloud networking platform really provides a fabric end-to-end here that connects the service production at one end with the service consumption at the other end. So in a nutshell, I've just tried to frame out kind of what's shaping our sort of architectural strategy and kind of what fundamental ideas are at work here. Now, all this is to now try looking forward to focus on three things. First of all, to make people more productive. Now, how and why? Well, how is through mobility. So here's the way I think of this, all right? We built our systems today assuming that mobility is an exception, all right? So that when someone is mobile, we have to do all these new things, all right? So what if we flip it over and we build everything assuming everyone is mobile, all right? And then if someone never moves from that chair right there, you don't have to do anything new, okay? So addressing mobile work styles is way beyond just someone who's a road warrior, someone who maybe needs to telework. It's way beyond DR. It gets at the fundamentals of what's going on today around change. So if you have calculations in your business around what it costs to add, move, change, or delete someone or something in your business, right? Either because you have a new employee, you have a new location, you change departments, you want to move a department from that floor to that floor, this building to that building. That's all about mobility, even though those people may not be seen as mobile workers, right? So mobile work styles become like core, I think, to everything we do in the future. And by the way, the more 13th generation employees we have in our organizations, the more they will just expect that. And by the way, when you actually build around that, the next time there is an M&A event, the next time you need to open or close a branch, the next time you need to do these things, that's an add, move, change. You're not hard-coded to some place. And by the way, when you actually build around that, the next time there is an M&A event, the next time you need to open or close a branch, the next time you need to do these things, that's an add, move, change. You're not hard-coded to some place. Or even, our opinion and strategy is you're not hard-coded to devices, you're not hard-coded to network connections, etc. Second thing is to really help in this process of IT transformation. Now, this is a 5 to 10 year process. It is already and going to be painful for years. And so we are here to serve you in actually making that process less painful and possible. And so that's sort of the second reason we're doing all these things. And then, for the business, people who are line of business folks that we all work for in the end, right? CEO, VP of this business unit or that business unit, we want to make it possible for them to adapt to change without being one of the bottlenecks. So let's, move from this market to that market, this geography to that geography. Let's engage this supplier versus that one, et cetera. These things have massive IT ramifications that they don't appreciate, all right? And it's because most systems were not designed to be that adaptable by definition, okay? And this is what's driving, transformation sort of at the core. Not only, business change in terms of business model, but also, people and the whole notion of consumerization. So if we zoom back from this picture, one layer, what's just under the surface here is a set of ideas, that you'll see. I'll try to elaborate a little bit on, and that is, this is all becoming a game of content and context, okay? And, so much energy in the industry and IT goes to the manufacturing of content, all right? And that sort of how it gets distributed and how it gets crafted in terms of context gets short-shrifted usually. And, when I think of, right, what do we really care about? Number one, data. Why? It's where all our intellectual property is. It's where our regulatory, compliance issues are. It's where our legal exposures are. I had the CIO of one of the largest pharma companies in the world tell me, we did a major wall-to-wall Zen desktop deal with him, and I went in to talk with him, and I asked him how he did the calculations and kind of the economic model. He said, Mark, have you looked at our income statements? And I said, no. He said, well, last year we spent almost, I won't tell you, almost $10 billion on legal issues, okay? Defending cases, reserving for future cases, patents, misappropriation of data, et cetera, right? So if you look at that, the thread that runs through it is we're not in control of the data. Who has access to it, where, when, why, how, okay? So, so anything we spend on this kind of infrastructure is nothing if we, just affect one or two of those big cases that come along where, the data got misappropriated. So content around data and then how the data gets manipulated through apps, no matter what they are, Windows, web, SaaS apps, mobile apps, to me become the center of gravity for the back end of IT. It's not about the operations, it's not about how much server virtualization you have, and et cetera. Those are all sort of tools that where the focus is, I think, content. And then at this end, it's about context. It's about making that stuff come together in the context of what someone's trying to do. Allowing them to connect to the people that need to work together to collaborate around a project in various locations using a range of devices, and where they can be very productive. And it's this notion of content and context, I think, will shape, it's shaping what we do, but I think it's going to shape really, how enterprise computing gets crafted going forward. So we're working on 4, I like to call them engines. They're not really platforms, they're engines to power all this. So the first one here is social collaboration engine, and it's all about the linking of people and ideas. Sort of our collaboration business is an expression of that, but it's an early expression of what we're trying to do there ultimately. Second is what we call follow me services, and this is providing the continuity of content and context. So think of it this way. If you use Netflix, right, you fired up an iPad, and then you pause the movie, and then you go home and you fire up your Samsung TV that has Netflix in it. You can continue right where you left off. Then you can pause it again, and you can pick up a smartphone and do it again, right? That's continuity of context and content. It's the same thing when I, take an iPad and I, log into a Zen desktop, and I pause by kind of disconnecting, and then I go over to my Mac and I log in again, and I get it. I go to another terminal, I go from one operatory to another, I go from one branch to another. Change, continuity of context and content. Okay, big deal for us. And I'm going to show you, kind of that here in a little bit. Third is this whole notion of a service delivery fabric. All right. So we all understand networks, layer kind of 1 through 4, fantastic. And that whole sort of transport layer of the network is getting reinvented all over again by Cisco, Juniper, and company, to be very flat, to take all this hierarchy out because it's too complicated, all right? Very fast and efficient. And, but on top of that is the context of what happens, all right? And that's what happens at layer 4 through 7. And obviously those are the important layers for us as a company. And those are the layers that we consider to be the service delivery fabric that really uses a powerful transport network to give fluency across all of the apps and all the data kind of that travel across them and feed obviously upstream here into the follow me services and collaboration. And then finally, cloud service platform, an engine that we're building that really is all about having dynamic business capacity as well as capability. Okay, so big, long-ranging ideas that we're working on, and these two engines are to drive something that I like to call the worldwide cloud, which I'll define here in a minute, right? And these two are to define something we call the personal cloud. Okay, because these are the two clouds that we think we all need to pay attention to from here forward. Now, maybe bringing it down a level, we think there is a personal cloud, and the worldwide cloud is the construct, right, and blurring of the lines between the private cloud, your data center, with lots of new technologies and capabilities there, plus public clouds, right? And I'll show you how we envision, and we're delivering technologies that help you build that worldwide cloud. So people sort of take this view of the world and look at all the things going on and like to talk about the post-PC era. It's rather, irritating to, the legacy people in the industry. And we don't really, yes, there are a lot of new things going on. We don't like to think about the post-PC era. We like to think about the 3PC era, okay? And those 3 PCs are the personal cloud, private cloud, and public cloud, okay? And so this is a cloud era where we're moving from a PC-centric era to a cloud-centric era. And the transformation here is radical across multiple dimensions. We like to think about technology and products, but there are mindsets, capabilities, specialties, IT structure, role, kind of how you position and see yourself in an organization. All that is changing at a very high rate of speed. So the way I like to think of it, this is a little polarizing and polar, but it's good to sort of look at polars to really get the contrast. That's the purpose of these things. So looking backward in the PC era, we saw ourselves as kind of plant managers, right? We build and operate the plant to manufacture the IT service. Okay, that's our focus. Ops, all right? The cost of ops and keeping it running efficient and so forth and so on, and being a specialist at that. Actually, looking forward in the cloud era, because you'll be able to buy a lot of, of that stuff, kind of offshore, if you want to think of it that way. The specialty moves to distribution and retail, where aggregation and orchestration of the service itself and the quality of the service, the experience of the service, etc., matters a lot more. Okay, that's our focus. Ops, all right? The cost of ops and keeping it running efficient and so forth and so on, and being a specialist at that. Actually, looking forward in the cloud era, because you'll be able to buy a lot of, of that stuff, kind of offshore, if you want to think of it that way. The specialty moves to distribution and retail, where aggregation and orchestration of the service itself and the quality of the service, the experience of the service, etc., matters a lot more. It's a huge mind shift change. So here's an observation. I referenced it before. And I think the way I think of this chart is what was the exception is now becoming the rule. So, all right, so we built most of IT on this assumption set that people work in offices. They use company-provided devices. They're, for the most part, connected to a wired network, because we built massive wired networks. That our systems are premise-based; they run on our premise. We tend to build applications in a monolithic kind of way, and we buy suites of things. Okay, and the exception is the person who's mobile, the person who brings a personal device in, the person who wants to connect wirelessly, even inside the office. The cloud, the SaaS app and service that we use, some of the micro apps that people are using in business today, and the whole notion of app stores. Those are all exceptions, and we begrudgingly do them, and we spend money doing them, etc. But what's happening now is this assumption set is dead. That's what's happened, all right? And so now, we have to actually move the assumption set to what was the exception now becomes the rule, right? So what if we assume that everyone is mobile? What if we assume that everyone is going to work from a personal device, wirelessly, with cloud services, micro apps, and using stores to get them, right? And if we assume this and we start building and architecting to this, then these that still exist, because they will for a long time, all right, they're not going to cost us incrementally. They're not going to be a problem. But as long as we look at these as exceptions, I think we're going to continue down sort of the path of incrementalism that's sort of gotten us here in terms of fixed costs, in terms of flexibility, ability to change, and kind of all those things, right? So what I'm hoping to do is help you see that there's a flip-flop going on here, exactly the same flip-flop that took place going from mainframe to PC when the PC was really a personal computer. Okay, the same things happen because what's happening is when the PC came along, it was an exception. Right? It was one of the exceptions, and how people used it. Oh, that's a little database they built over there. That's a little spreadsheet, a forecasting system. That's not the real computing. The real computing is, ERP, MRP, shop floor control systems, inventory control systems, ledger system, blah, 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 all of that. All right? So the same thing is happening. And so to get to the future, I think we've got to declare the old assumptions dead, all right? Declare the new assumptions, the things that are shaping how we're going to do everything going forward, and then get busy with it, because it is a transformation. I'll try to show you what that might look like. Looking backwards, if you're kind of running a factory, most factories, what are you trying to do? It's about quality, and it's about the cost of your output. So you're trying to be a low-cost producer of high-quality goods, and that's kind of how we've defined how we do make incremental, especially, decisions in computing. TCO, big deal. Going forward, this is actually a more important factor. Right? We've run a lot of TCO out of sort of existing legacy, kind of how we have done things. Right? What business actually values is TVO, the total value of ownership. Okay. When my children, all of our children, they turn 15 or whatever, when they get their sort of learner's permit, they want a car. And what do we tell you? Tell them, I'll get you a car when you can pay for the insurance, the gas, and the maintenance. That's this. But it's like, fine, Dad, check. I'll talk to you later. They want the car, because of its value of ownership, you know, to for after-school activities, you know, for friendships and relationships, and all the things that actually help them grow as humans. Yes, get in some trouble too, but you know, I think we all know that that's part of growing as a human as well, right? So that's, I mean, both are important. It's just that most of our language and our thinking, you know, kind of ignores TVO. Now, I'll show you what I mean. So when I look at some of the most profound customers in the world in terms of their adoption of our products and how they stitch them together, you know, with others, other vendors, et cetera. It's not us buying ourselves. And how they talk about why and the value. They never talk about TCO. And the value is never on the TCO spreadsheet, okay? It starts with the add, move, delete sort of thing. You know, it's when you're doing an M&A. We were in Chicago yesterday talking to a very large insurance company that has a big M&A project they're doing. And they're trying to figure out how to do it, and obviously they're doing some piloting using Citrix technologies. Why? Because, you know, apps and data don't get hard-coded to organizations, right? Huge value when you're, you know, merging, divesting, and, you know, sort of doing all these reorg types of things. You know, when the value of being able to bring new people on, whether they're contractors or employees, quickly, you know, the time to productivity matters. It does matter. And, you know, they talk about that. They talk about flex desking, the whole notion of a new style workplace where people can work collaboratively and change locations and floors and kind of how they, you know, they sort of come together and then they, you know, break up and so forth. And that usually goes hand in hand with disaster readiness, because once you break the hard coding between people and desks, right, then if there's a disaster where that desk is that they maybe like to sit at, you know, you want them to be safe. They don't have to come to that desk, all right? So they talk about that. Ability to open and optimize branch operations, because, you know, in fact, you know, the commentary, in fact, you hear it all the time. We're now to the point where the real estate guys, you know, the sign guys, you know, kind of all the other guys, all right, HR, doing the hiring, they're the obstacle. It's not the, you know, the information systems that people, you know, need when they get there. And then the whole notion of eco-efficiency, you know, some organizations, it's a big deal. Two of our big customers, Deutsche Bank and Goldman Sachs, in the last 18 months have opened brand new headquarters towers, one in Frankfurt, one in New York. And they both had a huge problem, that the size of the tower they needed to build could not be, that the power for heating, air conditioning, and systems was not available in that location, okay? They couldn't get it. And so they said, we're gonna solve this problem. And so by being able to separate sort of where content gets manufactured from where it gets consumed, and to really do that effectively, you know, they were able to build those towers, and in both cases won global platinum awards for those facilities. So now imagine the value and what that spreadsheet looks like, and who cares about that spreadsheet, all right? In terms of the location of people, the occupancy rates of buildings, the disaster readiness, especially when a disaster occurs, all right? The ability to attract you know, younger generation, you know, workers and retain them, et cetera, okay? This is where the new IT has to put its focus, our opinion, okay? Our opinion. All right, so I stuck in here just a few product and technology updates because I figured, you know, you'd want to see some of this stuff. And I'm just going to touch on them, and then if you want to talk more, we can come. So first, GoToMeeting. It's growing. It's been growing like a weed. And when we introduced the product, let's see, it was now 6 years ago. We were a new entrant, right? And we went from nowhere to number 2 in the world, and it's amazing. All right, so I stuck in here just a few product and technology updates because I figured, you'd want to see some of this stuff. And I'm just going to touch on them, and then if you want to talk more, we can. So first, GoToMeeting. It's growing. It's been growing like a weed. And when we introduced the product, it was now 6 years ago. We were a new entrant, right? And we went from nowhere to number 2 in the world, and it's amazing. Recently, we've taken the notion of web collaboration and video conferencing and put them together in GoToMeeting, which now, GoToMeeting, we call the video component HD Faces. So now you can actually have an online, on-demand web collaboration session with voice, video, PSTN, VoIP, etc., all in high definition, and then we're rolling it out all over the world. So real exciting. And the way we like to think, but we use it all the time. I mean, we couldn't run Citrix, and everyone in the company has this tool. So one of the things I think is interesting, what we're learning here as we go along, that we look at how we use it and how some of our customers use it. Here's a customer. The marketing department bought it, right? How we use it. It's like the conference call button on everyone's phone, right? So we get the network effect, and that's what you want from collaboration tools, that network effect, so that people can say, let's set up a meeting. Yeah, let's do it right now. No one has to travel. No, you don't have to walk down the hall. Let's do it now. So it's a huge deal, and one of the angles of attack, really important for us, is simplicity. All right, and this is a philosophy. We're cascading it to everything we do, and here's why. It's better for everyone. It's better for the user because no training. I just use it, and it's fast when it's simple. So GoToMeeting, it's the fastest meeting you can get in and out of. Okay. Secondly, simpler is lower cost because the support is lower, and because when people broadly adopt something, you're getting a payback on your investment. The number of customers that we see every quarter that have bought WebEx wall to wall, okay, but no one uses it. Well, not no one. Only those use it that have to use it. Why? Because it's hard to get in and out. It's not simple. Okay, it's not fast and easy, right? And then, simpler is better. And this is maybe something I'd take away. I'd like to say this: if someone made me suddenly czar of the world of IT, on the planet, and I could have one dictate and mandate, here's what it would be. All right, that we will never do another project in IT that requires end users to be trained. Just think about that, all right? Because, if you only get one mandate, you want the biggest lever that you can. So if that's the requirement, and you have to pass that bar, then think of all the great things that happen. It's this. We just force everyone to make things simpler. Because training people, is something we've always done. It's part of inertia, but it's not, kind of the way the new world works. How many training sessions have you been to, an iPhone app or an iPad app? By the way, I brought this. This is Lenovo's Android-based ThinkPad. I'll let you take a look at it. I just got it. I just started shipping it. It's quite I like the form factor. It has a pen, and I like to draw, as you may know. All right. And it has a great interface for doing drawings and all. It's quite nice. So, I fired it up. I logged in with my Gmail account, and it just, it gets set up with all these micro apps. No, I'm not being trained. So we like simpler is better. People ask, how about the iPad? Yes, it's coming. Okay, so you'll be able to do video. You can do meetings on the iPad, and iPhone, Android, but the video is coming. Right, so stay tuned on that. Next is something really important, and that's Citrix Receiver and Cloud Gateway. So when we talk to customers and sort of step back from the conversation, here's what we hear. We've got all these different sort of entities in IT and outside of IT that have bought apps, subscribed to SaaS apps, that have built their own apps, etc. And we have all these silos, right? And so we really have a hard time being able to really know what we're using and even take accountability for what we're using, let alone actually delivering it. So silos, really important. So a lot of tools are being used, sort of identity and access management. There's tons of that out there. A lot of device security solutions, MDM, kind of some newer stuff, some newer SLA stuff, some enterprise app stores coming along, and mobile VPN technologies. And all of these are trying to get at, bringing this stuff together into one sort of unified way. So we sort of have come to these 5 conclusions, right, quickly. That first of all, fighting end users on choice is a losing battle, and they will win, all right? They just will win. We all, when I say we, I'm looking at others that have my same haircut, all right? We won the PC choice battle, okay? So this is happening all over again. Secondly, that the way we actually have managed this mess over the years is we've said, look, we'll get the standards. The fewest number of images, the fewest number of unique, hardware platforms, databases, blah, blah, blah. That hasn't worked very well, and it actually is getting even more difficult. So that approach is now moving from hard, I think, to impossible looking forward. That driving this third point, that actually heterogeneity is increasing, right? Fighting this whole notion of fewer things and standards. So, I like this, and I'm going to take this and use this, in my work, right? So Paul Martini, our CIO, is like, I just bought this. Citrix doesn't own this. I own this, right? So fighting these kinds of things is going to be difficult, and heterogeneity of devices, connectivity, locations, and who's on your payroll, et cetera, will get harder and harder. So we think that what's happening here is a unification, sort of inside-outside, the enterprise and extraprise, unifying that across a few dimensions we'll talk about, and that the mantra for IT will be what we talked about here, this contextual delivery of the content, which is the apps and the data. Okay? So if you look at these sort of things and map them in terms of what addresses sort of siloed content, and what addresses context from low context to high, these things kind of map in different places, and there's some new innovations that are interesting. We think there's a new actual category of stuff called a unified service controller that sits out here that can unify all the content and can deliver in very high context environments, as in ranges of devices, ranges of connections, ranges of locations, identity, etc., but delivered through a unified sort of place. And so this service controller is a tool that we believe will allow you to really onboard all these things fast: people, devices, locations, through self-service, deliver apps on demand, manage your IP, as in content with encrypted delivery and remote wipe capabilities, allow you to regain control of a lot of the silos that you're not in control of, and save you a lot of money provisioning. The I is missing. It's a typo. I hate that. But save money in terms of turning things on and off. The money you spend in provisioning, the wasted money in licensing, and that is not used, and overall utilization of the system. So we've been working with Scott Adams, and I pulled this little cartoon out. It's actually pretty funny here. This says, our new employees want to access their apps from the cloud. Tell them it's not technically possible. We can't afford it, and it's against the law. All right, fight it. Is any of that true? Sort of, by the way. I'll just tell them this is where hope goes to die. Okay? So, this is actually what's happening, sort of this, and this is where the friction point is, I think, between users and IT. So this product that we'll talk about here, Cloud Gateway, is this notion of providing a single point of control for IT where you can unify all of the services, apps of all sorts and data, and a single point of service for the end user that you control. Okay? This product that we'll talk about here, Cloud Gateway, is this notion of providing a single point of control for IT where you can unify all of the services, apps of all sorts and data, and a single point of service for the end user that you control. Okay, and it really is the relation, the interplay between Citrix Receiver and this new product called Citrix Cloud Gateway. And Cloud Gateway basically aggregates any type of service, any kind of data service, mobile apps, SaaS apps, web apps, Windows apps, whether they're local or remote, whether they're in your private cloud or in the public cloud. Okay, so that's the core idea, and then deliver it to this universal point of service called Citrix Receiver that's on billions of devices. So Cloud Gateway, and so I think I probably said enough on this. We can answer questions. All right, Citrix Receiver, it's everywhere. I mean, this is core to us. Every device. I mean, it's even on the HP touchpad, unfortunately. Okay, so that's Receiver and Cloud Gateway. Zen Desktop and Zen App, really your Windows as a service cloud platform. That's the way to think about these. Right? Looking back, we've defined the world very much in a device-centric way. Looking forward, we're looking at people-centric ways, where the desktop is not a device; it's a service, and then it can be any kind of device, where people get a self-service experience, dynamic asset access, and usage-based cost model. So this is what's shaping our fundamental beliefs, innovations around desktop and app clouds. So if you look at kind of the progression over time, we've focused on different types of user segments over time, and you can see looking forward, we have a big focus on small, medium enterprises in this area, more and more mobile devices, and see what I mean by that, and more and more mobile workers, right? And doing a lot of things to lead, go mainstream, accelerate, and drive the cost down. Okay, so let me just show you that. This has not been shown in public yet. So here's the cost of a PC. Okay, if you take a typical VDI solution on the LAN, it costs more. And I think you're nodding. Everyone has concluded that, boy, if this VDI on the LAN, the TCO doesn't work. Now, it doesn't mean you don't do it, because you do get great security kinds of characteristics and agility characteristics, but the cost, is not the reason you do it. When you then introduce the WAN, it actually gets more expensive, all right, because of the consumption of the bandwidth. Okay, so you can see this is even a bigger problem. Consumption of bandwidth and the technology you need to kind of drive the WAN and optimize it. So what we've done is bring a lot of technologies together around Zen Desktop with something new called Personal VDI, which I'll show you in a minute and explain, along with our LAN and WAN technologies. And our goal is to get the cost of a desktop below the cost of a PC. That's our goal, because then it makes your life a lot easier in all of these TCO discussions, etc. That's what we're doing, for you. And it comes in a range of innovations that are around how we approach shared desktops, the integration of branch repeater into the infrastructure for WAN optimization, improving server density, introduction of this personal vDisk and IntelliCache, which I'll show you next here, because they're part of Zen Desktop 5.5 and Zen App 6.5, which have just been released in the last month or so. So we actually, through an acquisition, we acquired a company called RingCube. Okay, and RingCube had the most powerful layering technology in the world. And what this layering technology allows you to do is take basically what's a virtual disk, okay, and and put it on a virtual or physical machine and isolate the apps, the data, and the preferences, so that it can sit on top of a standard single OS image. Okay, so all the personalization, customization goes into this vDisk. All right. So what happens is, like in a VDI, that's what we sort of call it, personal VDI. In a VDI system, most people want a dedicated VM, but the storage costs of these things are enormous. And so we completely eliminate the storage costs of the OS because you only have one. Okay, and then each person's, preferences, data, and apps are in a vDisk. So it reduces the storage hugely. Okay, so and you still get a personal PC experience. So that to the user, it looks like a dedicated VM, and it feels like a dedicated VM. But to all of us that are looking at the costs and how to manage and build these things and operationalize them, it actually is two layers. Okay, the OS and then the apps, the data, and the prefs. As we go forward, we'll let you actually layer this again, because you might want to layer the apps and the preferences away from the data, because you just might want to, have a different kind of policy around backup, encryption, and those kinds of things. Okay, so that's what will come next in this area. New in Zen Desktop and Zen App, the biggest number of improvements in HDX in company history. You can see kind of some of the numbers here in terms of performance on the WAN, on the LAN, scanning, printing 6 times faster, way better performance on Flash, some QoS stuff, and we're actually running GoToMeeting with HD faces on virtual desktops. We're also introducing a set of services to help you transform. We call it the DTM, Desktop Transformation Model. That includes some new tools. There's a tool called the Success Accelerator that allows you to manage and design your transformation projects. This is what the website looks like. Nick and the team can help you with this. Basically, it's a step-by-step tool to allow you to identify projects, etc., and then how to design them and architect them, including things like this. Here you get to step 7, design the platform layer, and one of the steps is choosing your hypervisor. So you can make your choice here, and then this is not real data, by the way. All right, this is all brand new. It's not been launched yet, so in 2 weeks it'll be launched. But you'll see what peers have chosen, okay, as well. So you get a sense for kind of what other people are doing when you use a tool like this. Next is CloudBridge. All right, CloudBridge is that tool that connects clouds together, private to private, private to public, public to public. So it's simple. Sorry about the text here. So and the key thing here, it makes the connection with full transparency, security, and performance. Because the way it works very low in the network stack. So it builds a encrypted data tunnel that has IP transparency, layer 2 and 3, with acceleration, okay? And so what happens is the tools that you have in your private cloud, if you put you put the bridge in place, you start a VM or something, a database here, all the tools that you use inside can actually see them through the bridge. Right? So that you can start to do some interesting things to leverage Amazon, Rackspace, and SoftLayer, and the many other public clouds infrastructure that's out there. So for example, you can keep your data and your directory services here. You can put your compute user tier, logic tier services here. Right? So that's an example. There are a lot of examples that this is a great tool for. And it really is, just like we do any-to-any sort of apps, desktops, and devices, this is any-to-any cloud. And this is how you end up building the worldwide cloud, because then, this, as the back door of your data center, all of a sudden, it's endless. It's infinite, because every cloud that's out there, can be yours. in a private, secure kind of way. Then it's only a matter of you imagining, kind of how you want to use it and get started on it. Every cloud that's out there, can be yours in a private, secure kind of way. Then it's only a matter of you imagining, kind of how you want to use it and get started on it. All right. We actually think over time here, there'll be many thousands of clouds, and this is the landscape, kind of the way we look at the landscape. Across, at the left, it's who's the owner-operator, IT/enterprise or a service provider, right? And down here is the sort of the spectrum of cloud design. Is it a horizontal, general-purpose cloud to do pretty much what anyone wants to put on it, or is it a special purpose, sort of, I call them vertical clouds, right? So here are the examples. So the biggest horizontal cloud owned by a service provider in the world is Amazon Web Services. Okay, and between VMware, Microsoft, and Oracle, they are attacking the notion of a general purpose horizontal cloud for IT. That's their center of gravity. All right. If you start looking out here, vertical clouds, the largest vertical clouds are clouds like Zynga, Netflix. There are others. I took a whole bunch of logos off the chart. And Zynga actually hosts some of their games on Amazon, but they actually have a huge cloud that's their own that looks and feels like Amazon, but they run it themselves. They get better costs. All right. This cloud, the Zynga cloud, I heard 2 weeks ago, it has 16,000. The one that's not in their private cloud has 16,000 physical servers. I mean, and 3 months ago it was 5,000. So if your kids or whatever, nieces, nephews plays Fishville, that's where they're going, right? To this vertical cloud. Netflix, the same, all right? In terms of IT ownership and operation, a good example of a vertical cloud is Zen Desktop and Zen App, right? They're Windows as a service clouds that you own, all right? They have a special purpose. They do Windows apps and desktops, all right? So we see, the blurring of all this coming, things like Cloud Bridge, Cloud Gateway to help you aggregate across all this. Now, by the way, Amazon runs on Zen, not Zen Server, okay? All these other logos you see here are running on Citrix Cloud Stack, okay? Which is a new product that we have. I'll just show you one picture of it. These companies are building both horizontal and vertical clouds that are more in the public domain. There are some enterprise customers that sort of hover around the edge here, like Fidelity, Bechtel, et cetera, that are using Cloud Stack. But this is the center of kind of what we're doing with Cloud Stack, really focusing right now on service providers building horizontal and vertical cloud. So if you go to GoDaddy and you want to buy some infrastructure as a service, that's all running on Citrix Cloud Stack. Okay. They have a custom UI in front of it because we have a full API suite, etc., with NetScalers and all that good stuff and so forth. So just to give you a sense for what this means to us as a company. So here's the picture. It's an eye chart. Down at the bottom, all clouds are built on a compute stack, hardware, network, and storage. There's a virtualization layer. We love our own hypervisor, but we're hypervisor neutral in the things that we build above it. So Zen Desktop is a good example, right? So Cloud Stack is another example, right? So we run on all these brand X's here. The Cloud Stack platform has sort of two layers. There's the stuff that actually does the horizontal scaling across the hardware, and then there's something will be announced in 2 weeks called Cloud Portal, and it has multiple components. The big ones are Services Manager, which is the user-facing, the end-user-facing Service Manager. Think of an application catalog. If any of you use like Microsoft services, etc. The Services Manager technology is used by about 1,200 service providers around the world that provide hosted SharePoint services, Exchange services, lots of Microsoft stuff and non-Microsoft, including XenApp services. And then there's a new piece here, the Infrastructure Manager, which allows you, so think of this, Services Manager has really been directed at being able to publish Windows as a service capabilities, and Infrastructure Manager is what publishes the Infrastructure as a service capabilities. And then obviously Cloud Gateway, NetScaler, they're all integrated with this stuff. And Xen Server is an important piece of this whole formula. Xen Server, I don't know how many of you are using some Xen Server in your enterprise. Xen Server has really, continued to, have great momentum. You can see here in the last 6 quarters, over 300,000 physical servers lit up. We have 10-12% of the enterprise market. A much bigger share of the service provider market. A lot of Fortune 500. A lot of Xen Desktop running on Xen Server, and then a lot of business with cloud providers. And we just announced and started shipping Xen Server version 6. It'll save you a lot of money, but a lot of things that we've done around optimizing for Xen Desktop, around things for our service providers, for infrastructure clouds, especially in virtual switching. Microsoft partnership, very strong here. So, integrates with System Center very nicely. Changes in the network architecture to take advantage of SR-IOV to get 10 gig performance through the virtualization platform, and a bunch of simplicity and ease of use things. So take a look at it. It's an awesome product. So that's what we're doing to power mobile work styles and cloud services. You can see pretty broad set of things beyond just virtual apps and data. Now, there's a term I want to introduce you to called VUCA. Has anyone heard of this term? Okay. So this term was invented by the U.S. government in 2009 and to express the assumptions about the future that public policy would have to be built upon, and how we would have to shape our nation's course. And here's what it means: volatility, uncertainty, complexity, and ambiguity. Okay, and so you can Google it, etc. There's a fabulous book written by Bob Johansen, well, now I'm going to forget. Bob was one of the senior fellows at the Institute for the Future for a long time. As he points out, it's the only future forecasting organization that has outlived their forecasts like multiple times. Okay, that's probably the most impressive thing about them. But we think this not only applies to kind of the business environment, this is what the IT and industry environment looks like as well. So a lot of that being driven by what's happening in consumerization. Not only on the endpoints and all that pain we're feeling, but also when someone in a line of business signs up for GoToMeeting, and it's not your budget, but you do care, right? I think, or they go to Amazon website services and build something because they need it. Just like I bought a PC at Computerland back in 1979, I guess it was. 79, 80, somewhere in there, to do a better job of forecasting for Boise Cascade, kitchen cabinet division where I worked at the time. And, so same thing's happening out the back end as well in terms of infrastructure and apps and et cetera. So creating a lot of disruption. Last year we talked about BYOC, but since then a lot has happened, and so now we it's bring your own device because it's not only a computer, and now we like to talk about bring your own 3, a smartphone, a tablet, a laptop. Okay, and consumerization at work, where it's happening. Bring your own apps, whether that's a micro app that someone brings in, or it's the sales department that surreptitiously signs up for Salesforce.com, even though you're a Siebel shop. Okay, why are they doing it? They're not doing it to be mean or anything. They're doing it because they have a mission, and it serves their mission better than the decision that got made by the group that made such a bigger picture decision. So bring your own apps, bring your own network, right? So I've got my Sprint 3G, 4G overdrive behind the curtain over here, to make sure we had a Wi-Fi signal. Happening everywhere. People are going wireless and they don't mind bringing their own network. Bring your own network, right? So I've got my Sprint 3G, 4G overdrive behind the curtain over here, to make sure we had a Wi-Fi signal. Happening everywhere. People are going wireless and they don't mind bringing their own network. Important. Bring your identity. This is starting to happen, all right? Everyone's, not everyone, but we all have more than a corporate identity. Okay, let's just put it that way. And this is going to become more and more. It's now an exception. It becomes more and more the rule. And bring your own cloud. The stories are vast. If you want to, kind of look at, kind of see the examples, one of our great partners in cloud computing is a company called RightScale. All right, amazing company, fabulous guys. Some former Citrix guys are some of the founders. Go to their website and see their case studies, all right? And basically, they've helped a whole ton of enterprise customers corral the notion of IT dev and departmental people going off and building stuff in Amazon, et cetera. And they didn't block it, they are enabling it, okay? So, and you can see the case studies and kind of how they thought that process through. So this is what's driving these three PCs. And, a lot of, unfortunate realities. So this is a good one. The what? Are you getting a lot done on the grandpa box? The people in my generation do our work on our phones and tablets. I also have a laptop. I'll text the 90s and let them know. Okay. A great one. But, this is, kind of, a fun and funny expression of kind of consumerization in a generational way, in a mindset way that's real. So this personal cloud, this is a cloud that's about blending your life and your work. And it's got all these things in it, my devices, my data, my peeps, my friends, my preferences, the locations I work from, et cetera. It's the aggregation of all of that that helps you have a better life and do better work. That's what we believe the personal cloud is, and an important part of the future of IT, empowering it. Because when you power it, you allow people to do time slicing, where work is not a place and it's not a segment of time, the way a lot of people have grown up this way. This is the way the personal cloud works. It allows work shifting. Instead of work being at a desk, you can shift that work to anywhere. Okay? And mind sharing. Instead of being it's something you do by yourself, it's something that you do collaboratively, inside, outside the firewall, with people who can help you with your mission, right? And puts the notion of productivity and the responsibility and accountability for productivity back on individuals. I think that's the direction that we're going. I know a lot of this sounds radical, but to me, this is like freeing, because all of a sudden we don't have to take the accountability for productivity. We have to take accountability for providing tools, right? Yeah, we were talking at lunch yesterday, or was it last night? Think of this. I've got two people that have to do carpentry. One is an expert carpenter, and we give him, kind of Walmart tools. And the next one is, I like to watch HGTV. And this next one is a, kind of an entry-level carpenter, and we give him the world's best tools, saws, etc. Same project. Who's going to get the best outcome? The person with the skills. Professional, right? It's because they're going to take simpler, maybe even less sophisticated tools and put them to use in practice better than the person who's got the best. They just don't know how to put them. They don't know how to put them in practice. So I think actually this whole personal cloud is all about supplying the tools and then, letting people, self-select productivity and work styles to actually, have the better outcome. So, personal computing is becoming personal again. The worldwide cloud, this has got, kind of an X-ray architecture as well. It has Windows as a service in terms of the kinds of desktops and apps we use. It has SaaS, web, and mobile in it. It has directory services, data, infrastructure, and platform services, all built on this compute, network, and storage platform, in this broad sense. And in this sense, computing is becoming invisible again. Okay, that's the way we want the computing to be, invisible, right? We want the experience to be personal. So now, I'm going to show you kind of what that looks like in something we call follow me data. So the setup is this. We talked about continuity of context and content, right? And the example being, taking a Zen desktop or a Zen app and being able to move from device, screen to screen to screen to screen. That's the continuity of context. And as long as all the data is, kind of underneath it, you get it. And as long as you have a connection, you're there, right? But what if, you have mobile devices, you have local apps, what if you're disconnected, etc.? So we're moving into a new space, adding capabilities to complement Follow Me apps with something we call Follow Me data, okay? And I'm going to show you the example here on this iPad. And this has the beta of iOS 5 on it, so that's my get out of jail card. And here, I'll light it up first. Okay, hopefully you can see this. So I'm going to go into this folder here we call Showcase, where we have some, kind of future stuff. And I've got a Citrix receiver in there. You see that in the bottom left. So I'm just going to touch it. And here you see this is what the new Citrix receiver experience is like. Much more beautiful, much simpler. My apps, there are my apps, okay? And I mean, this looks pretty familiar. And by the way, there's the Enterprise App Store. So those are all the apps that you've published to users. Now, when we make these announcements in a couple of weeks, we'll be showing the integration of Windows, it's like Win32 apps, check, you already know all about that. Win32 desktops, check, you already know all about that. Integration of all SaaS apps, okay? Web apps, whether they're inside or outside your firewall, okay? And mobile apps, right? Running like locally on iOS or Android, etc. We've done a couple of little side demos along the way, but we're going to actually put this front and center in a couple of weeks. And this is where they come together. And, you choose the apps, you favorite them, and there you go. There they are. Okay. So what about the data that the apps need? Okay. Well, that's where our follow me. Okay. So I need to navigate out of here. So you can see the Verizon connection is not very good, and best laid plans of mice and men. I might be in trouble here. Okay, I'm going to try something. Close your eyes. Let me just kill it. Okay, let's see. That may take us back. Yeah, there we go. Okay, so now, there are a lot of folders here. Okay, this is my primary, folders. I mean, this is real. Okay, and this is in the cloud. Okay, and also it's in the public cloud and the private cloud. And when if I need a document here, let's see, we'll go to, let's see here. No, let's not go there. Here. see if I've got a research report in here from Stiefel, so I can favorite it. Whoops. All right. And there it is. All right. And so I can favorite documents, put them in my on my home screen here. And now I've said, go get this document for me. I've chosen it might be actually sizable. It's a neat report on personal cloud. So it's going off to the cloud, and it gets the document here, I can page through it, etc. I can open it in iBooks. If it's a document I need to sign, it's a PDF. I've got a signing tool, etc. I can open it in iBooks. If it's a document I need to sign, it's a PDF. I've got a signing tool, etc. If I use Dropbox, I can do that. But our IT guys don't really want me to use Dropbox. All right. So this is an answer to that, by the way. Okay. It's easy for me to share. I can just send the share, and it just sends a link. Okay. And so I can send it to all of you. You'll just get the link. Didn't replicate the file, etc. We work on the authoritative. The cloud version is the authoritative version of the app. Okay. And so I can email it. And by the way, all this is obviously in the configuration. And then this edit button. All right. I'm not configured for it here, but let's say it's PowerPoint or massive spreadsheet, so forth. You want to edit it. You set the policies up so that it actually goes to your app cloud. Okay, and it opens that PowerPoint with PowerPoint in your app cloud with the document out of your cloud. Okay, so get all the capabilities of PowerPoint or whatever the tool happens to be. All right, save it, and then it does all the synchronization, replication, and off you go. All right, just a little bit of a preview, of this technology, so that we can set people free, make them mobile, and use it inside the firewall, outside the firewall. It's sort of like independent of that. Apps, data, collaboration, kind of bringing those together is the core idea. Okay, so. Back here. All right. So you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to actually just briefly, let me just get to. This is a spidergram saying this is where we are. We have a lot of legacy systems today. We don't use much in the way of cloud services. We don't provide much in the way of consumer experiences in terms of the way people relate to IT. And we've just, this is an endless march to business productivity. So the way we think over the next 5 years, 10 years you get there is you got to take the legacy and you got to simplify it, okay, and get rid of what you can, all right? So that's the enabler to going much further and using cloud services to get the flexibility that a cloud service brings. And then being able to work virtually and be mobile is important to really extending business productivity much further and moving to a self-service model that we love, by definition everywhere we go, whether it's the ATM, okay, pharmacies with drive-thrus, iPads, Android devices, etc. So we think that this is actually the shape that we need to get to, going forward. All right, and so kind of our sort of focus is on making those four transformations possible, and help you deal with a world that's getting exponentially more heterogeneous going forward, and to do that in a way that I think is unique to Citrix. We've been called the Switzerland of computing for a long time, okay? And I have a core philosophy, and I think that the most successful people I know are the people that go with who they are, all right? Because I believe that the most powerful thing that anyone can ever be, whether you're a person, a company, or a nation, all right, is who you are. And knowing who you are is about being yourself. So the most powerful thing you can be is yourself. And it's when you lose sight of that, you kind of go wandering off intellectually of who you want to be, but you're not. Okay, so we're not, lost in this. So I like to think about our future is, yes, we'll continue to be the Switzerland of computing, but we're going to be the combination of Switzerland, Dubai, and Singapore. Okay, a place and a vendor and a company that you can count on, all right, to help you navigate through the agendas that everyone is pushing their way in the industry. But like Dubai, Singapore, and Switzerland, it's a place where people can go and where it's multicultural, multilingual. You can exchange currencies, ideas, and people, come there to negotiate and to actually make things work. It's what lets the tectonic plates of agendas actually work together. So that's our core belief around the value that we bring in the industry and to you. So I'm going to show you an example here. So you see me, I'm using this Mac Air. Okay, the reason I use Mac Airs, I use them with Windows, by the way. All right, and it's because Apple makes the best Windows hardware. I mean, Windows 7 runs best on a Mac Air on Boot Camp. Okay, I mean it just does. It's just amazing how fast it is when it's running on the bare metal. I'm not talking about Fusion or Parallels, etc. They're problematic because they're Type 2 hypervisors. They're not on the bare metal. There are all kinds of issues in performance, security, etc. So I love using a Mac Air. It's light, and by the way, everyone said, here's the iPad. Laptops, no one wants them, they're going away. Well, these guys are not going to stand around and just let it get away from them. So what happens? This is an example of an Ultrabook, right? So the Ultrabooks are coming, and guess what? They're going to look like this, which is, what do we like about this thing? It's light. It's long battery life. It's always connected. It's got all this good stuff that everyone likes. With this, with 3G or 4G in it, okay, from your favorite guys, maybe Dell, HP, maybe, but Dell, Lenovo, et cetera, these things, the pendulum's going to kind of swing back a little bit, all right? That's part of the heterogeneity problem. So, runs great. The other thing that's nice is, you can even run Windows 8 on it, which is nice. So here's Windows 8. Okay. So, etc. Now, I use Boot Camp because you run on the bare metal. But this is not Boot Camp. Okay. This is not Boot Camp. This is Citrix Zen Client running on a Mac. Okay. So, here's Zen Client. All right. Oh, I see it. It dropped the network connection. So here's Zen Client. It's hard for you to see. Here's Mac OS, WinXP, Win 7, the Win 8 preview, and then a personal Win 7 that I put on it. Okay, all running on the bare metal. All right. So what it takes to do this is technology, yes. Science, yes. All right. It takes relationships, all right, that Citrix has, and a philosophy and a belief system that we have. Right? That's why I'm showing it to you. We haven't shown this anywhere else. All right, and I think we may be showing it in our conference in Barcelona in a couple of weeks. All right, kind of as a one more thing. All right, but this is important. In terms of think of your organization and the mobile executives. All right, and with this kind of tool, you get control of the security, etc. They get great performance, and they get the beauty and the lightness of an Ultrabook. Whether it's a Mac or it's a similar kind of device coming from some of the other suppliers, they'll get that. And it's got a keyboard on it. And I think people are learning, for certain types, this is fine, all right. But there are plenty of things where you really want a keyboard, all right. And then you add a Bluetooth thing to Bluetooth keyboard to this, it's a mess. I bought one for an iPad. I was showing it to my daughter, kind of, hey, look at this. She says, Dad, wait a minute. You mean you turned your iPad into a laptop? I immediately took it apart and I gave it away. It's like, yeah, you're right. She's right. She's exactly right. So, that's really, kind of the expression of what we're trying to do. And the reason I go to this length is we take our obligation to you seriously. We don't take our customer and partner relationships lightly and for granted. And so, I need you to understand kind of what we're about and what you can rely on coming from us, because you're building important systems, important aspects of your career and your organizations around us. And it's not a heavy load, but it's something that it means a lot to us. And and we're very, very, very thankful for it. All right, thankful for your business and how you've really brought this company to where it is today, and I think where we're going in the future. So now, I rambled a bit, all right, but I hope that the conversation so far has been helpful, useful, and I think we have some time for some discussion.
We got about 15 minutes for Q&A.
That's really kind of the expression of what we're trying to do, and the reason I go to this length is we take our obligation to you seriously. We don't take our customer and partner relationships lightly and for granted. And so, I need you to understand kind of what we're about and what you can rely on coming from us, because you're building important systems, important aspects of your career and your organizations around us. And it's not a heavy load, but it's something that it means a lot to us. And and we're very, very, very thankful for it. All right, thankful for your business and how you've really brought this company to where it is today, and I think where we're going in the future. So now, I rambled a bit, all right, but I hope that the conversation so far has been helpful, useful, and I think we have some time for some discussion.
We got about 15 minutes for Q&A.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Just no sharp objects. You can throw, but something soft.
So when do you download the Zen client?
I think probably next year. Probably first half. That's the tricky part of showing it, in Barcelona. But it's an important, sort of part of the process. So think maybe first quarter of next year. Yeah, and we're pretty excited about it for a range of reasons. Okay, so Zen Client 2 is now available. This is Zen Client 2, by the way, but you can't put it on a Mac, and you've got to know a lot of rocket science, to do it. But this is Zen Client 2, so this is not sort of some wild custom thing. And by the way, I didn't show you. Well, here you see this there's a yellow bar across the top here. It says it's in safe graphics mode, and that's because Zen Client 2 on a Mac right now is only supporting the Intel graphics. The NVIDIA onboard is coming real soon. Okay? Because so those are some of the areas that have to get filled out for it to become a product, including kind of how you install it, which becomes really an important thing for the world of Mac. It's coming along really well. Okay, so Zen Client. So when we announced Zen Client, there were two minds that got formed. One was, wait a minute, that's a better way to do desktop management. Okay, even if there's only one VM on a machine, and it's like fine, but that's really not the focus. The other mind is like, this is about security and use cases that there's no other solution for. Let me give you an example. There are, I guess, hundreds of thousands of consultants in the world, whether it's with Accenture, E&Y, whatever, and they work for multiple clients. They have to have multiple laptops because it's like, I don't want my environment, my NSA environment going into the DoD, can't do it, or or corporate. So there are hundreds of thousands of those, whether they're doing business consulting, all kinds of military applications, or IT outsourcing, etc. Right? So that's the segment that we had in mind, which then led us to not worry about backward compatibility, because honestly, the way we've built this, and there's a version of ZenClient called ZenClient XT, and priced it and so forth. It's really for the prospective world in these segments where the cost of the software, because there is a real cost of building it and supporting it, is easily justified with a new laptop. So someone goes from 3 to 1. Okay, so that's kind of been our focus. So we've opened up so tons of I think now with ZenClient 2. We, in the next year, based upon sort of vendor forecasts, we'll have compatibility with like 45 million devices they expect to ship. Okay, so lots from HP, from Dell, from Lenovo, and then coming from Toshiba and Panasonic, because some of the military use cases for the Toughbook series. Okay, so that's how it's going. Well, this what you're seeing here is free. There will be kind of more of a professional version of it, so we can get some licensing for it, again to support obviously to support the business. For example, ZenClient XT, which is really for we call it XT, is for the most extreme kinds of cases. So you see that in everything from civilian to military, government agencies. We're working worldwide with them. They've been incredible customers helping us actually build this product, this version of it. So it's it's priced. Its retail price is $500. Okay, now for them, they're going from, well, first of all, the alternative is $25,000. Okay, alternative solutions that are out there, and then secondly, they're getting rid of rooms of stuff. So but that's what that product is designed for, that segment. But it's part of Zen Desktop. So the focus is this sort of segment that we just talked about, obviously supporting Zen Desktop FlexCast model. That's the other big use case. That's part of Zen Desktop. So to the degree that any one piece of Zen Desktop is free, yes, okay. You decide what part you're paying for perhaps, but it's what's included in Zen Desktop. And so there you go. And then this is in contrast to something like the Windows 8 Hyper-V. Okay, so Windows 8 Hyper-V, will be fine, and that will be more of the desktop management thing. And we'll have components of ZenClient, not the hypervisor, but things that are higher up that will plug into it because we're a Microsoft partner. And Microsoft gets those big kinds of use cases, and we don't. That's just being smart about where you should kind of exercise your innovation and where you shouldn't. Right? But of course, if you want to use it for desktop management, it's there. It'll be there for you.
Does Citrix have any vision on computing interfaces in the future? Like, how do you see the convergence of touch and traditional mouse and keyboard, and how do you see those worlds blending together in the future?
Yeah. Well, first of all, we're not sure. Okay. I'd say preponderance of folks at Citrix, including me, don't believe in touching a vertical screen. Okay. And so we're on kind of the Apple side on that, right? And that's from like lots of personal experience, etc. Touch, expressed in a horizontal surface, kind of the way Apple has done it, probably the way some of the the devices coming from Windows 8 will when there's a vertical screen. It's probably more like this. Secondly, the touch is just one of this range of inputs that are needed for productivity and user experience. So what we're doing is Again, another announcement we'll be making in a couple weeks. So all these Citrix receivers are getting lit up to support the local device's capabilities. So like this one, on the iPad, can read the GPS, the accelerometer, kind of all of the sensors that are on board, including the touch and all of that stuff. So that when you have an app, all right, that you want to host and it needs access to that, you can have access to it, all right? And then secondly, and we've done these demonstrations before, we think of location services-based access control, okay? So you're a healthcare organization, you're a financial services organization, et cetera, and, here's Citrix, CEO saying, mobilize everybody, just push them on out there, set people free. Right, all right, but that's not without some policies, rules, and ability to kind of manage all of that in a way that's acceptable to regulatory compliance kind of things. So imagine this receiver being able to read the GPS, and imagine Cloud Gateway, being able to express a location access control service. So that, okay, this can only be used in the zip code, this state, this premise, etc. Okay, so you're a healthcare organization, you're a financial services organization, etc. And here's Citrix, CEO saying, mobilize everybody, just push them on out there, set people free. Right, all right, but that's not without some policies, rules, and ability to kind of manage all of that in a way that's acceptable to regulatory compliance kind of things. So imagine this receiver being able to read the GPS, and imagine Cloud Gateway, being able to express a location access control service. So that, okay, this can only be used in the zip code, this state, this premise, etc. And so you can still go get the app, okay? You can click and favorite it and everything. It's just that, the access control is turned off. And then using that kind of stuff to express a lot more kind of policies, like, we have some new technology that will do PIN codes. So one of the things that people say, I love the iPad with receiver and all that, but I keep having to log in. I hate all it. So what we've done is, we'll announce it in a couple weeks. Is allows you to put a PIN pad in front of everything. Okay, that's a hosted. Think of it as a hosted PIN pad, right? So that you can keep the encrypted, secure connection persistent, but then you can have policies around, when the door comes down, someone has to unlock it, a doctor or, a banker or, someone, a salesperson that's providing, services, so that they get a better user experience around being persistently, securely connected, but you get a chance to say, hey, we got to drop that safe, that door, and ask for the PIN code, every whatever, 30 seconds of inactivity or whatever you want. So, a lot of that stuff, because here's the problem, this next 10 years, you're going to have, a cadre of Windows, Win32 apps, you're going to have some new, WinFT apps, you're going to have some new HTML5 apps, you're going to have iOS apps, you're going to have Android apps, you're going to have, kind of all this stuff, right? So what we want to do is give you a single place to control and aggregate it, and a universal a universal point of service, so that you can feel like, all right, I can set people free with apps and data, but I've got the boundary conditions set, because it's this trade-off between freedom and policy enforcement. And by the way, policies are going to change. When I think of, we haven't really talked much about that, but you have to re-look at all your policies. I was in Chicago seeing one of the world's largest packaged goods company a few months ago, and the CIO was saying, okay, let me show you what I love at the iPad, with Citrix Receiver, Zen App, Zen Desktop, and let me show you what I hate. So here's what I love, here's what I hate, right? And login times, he hated. He hated this having to, connect over and over again. and a few other things. And so I looked at the infrastructure guy, head of infrastructure, and I said, you've got some, scripting and stuff going on here. These login times are crazy bad. I mean, by the way, Zen App 6.5 and Zen Desktop 5.5, we've improved login times dramatically, right? And, oh yeah, well, we just use our old, roaming profile login scripts, and I mean, it just, and I said, okay, here's my question. Do those scripts apply to someone, accessing from an iPad? He goes, not really. So, well, why do we do it? Well, that's our policy. Okay. So, there are other policies around, security and documents and, just a whole bunch of things that you're going to just have to go back and look at again, to enable the kind of world that we're talking about. So there are a lot, there are a lot of things, it's why it feels so uncomfortable, I suppose, why it's going to take 5-10 years of transformation. I mean, organization design is going to change, governance models are going to change in IT organization. I mean, a lot of these things are going to change dramatically over the next 5 and 10 years. And, it's like, be part of it, change it. Other comments or questions?
How long have you guys been doing bringing in place in Citrix?
We're going into our 4th year. So 3 years ago, I was on probably, very much a trip like this, and on the plane back is where I get my crazy ideas, because I hear, questions and comments, perspectives. So I walked in and I went to Paul Martini, our CIO. I said, Paul, here's what I want to do. We've been talking about, by the way, it was when we were talking a lot about elimination, the elimination generation. The idea being, it's like if you keep the same black box of stuff, just rearranging it isn't going to save you money. Okay, so you're going to have to throw some stuff away. So that's what inspired this, by the way. So what things could you throw away? Well, how about laptops and desktops? Just don't own them anymore. Right? Other things too. But so that's what inspired it. So I went in and I said, Paul, I'd like to set a goal that in a year we will not own 20% of the devices that our folks use. And we've been talking about this bring your own computer sort of idea. Let's go do it, because we go do it. We have kind of technology to enable it, etc. But we need to learn a lot, and whatever we learn, we'll put it in the new technology, and then we'll give it to our customers what we learn. Okay, so that's how it started, and we had this incredible meeting, steering committee meeting, and it was awesome, except for one conversation. Part of the conversation, I lost this debate, and that was, should there be a stipend, and if so, how much? So I thought, yes, there should be a stipend, of course, right? And I was arguing $700 to $1,000, okay, over 3 years, okay, and they were arguing $2,100, and their argument was, that's what we spend over 3 years, on average across the company, on endpoint devices. And then secondly, and this is how they won the argument, is that, we're doing a test. This is a research science project, right? So let's not test the economics, because we can just change the cell in the spreadsheet on that, okay? Let's learn all the other things. And there was a lot to learn around a lot of legal stuff, and you put policies together, the contracts, the rules. One of my rules was, if all the rules had to fit on one page, because you can't get it broadly adopted. It's back to that keep it simple thing, So, by the way, any of this stuff, you are welcome to have it, And so, we're in the 3rd year, and Paul, he's been all over the world talking about it. Recently, we got a lot of, I don't know why, there was a New York Times article a week or so ago about it, and just a number of, it's becoming more mainstream.
How's it worked out over your time? So 4 years that you've done it in Citrix, how many people Or
Well, we're at the 20%. So I made this, request, and we had the meeting. That was ahead of the financial meltdown, okay? And the way we do, capital budgeting and spending is these kinds of things. What we do is like a PC is a low value asset, and it doesn't, so it gets expensed, okay? And so that means departmental budget owners own that. So IT doesn't have any device, low value asset device capital budget, and hasn't for almost 10 years now. So that forces the decisions to be very local, okay? So that, when someone wants a refresh, then they talk to their manager, and the manager says, okay, I see your point, blah, 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 and, we'll do that. And then that money comes out of their budget. And by the way, we'll buy you, it's a narrow list, but, you got a lot of choices, because we don't really care, because we use our own technology. We don't have like no one in here that works for Citrix has a corporate issue standard like laptop. We got every flavor you can imagine on the planet, okay? Because we just never have needed to, even before the BYO. So what happened is then, budgets get tighter, managers, are stretching the life of assets, and so that slowed, the process of getting to 20%. It had nothing to do with capabilities, technology, policies. It was all financial, right? Because we use our own technology. We don't have like no one in here that works for Citrix has a corporate issue standard like laptop. We got every flavor you can imagine on the planet, okay? Because we just never have needed to, even before the BYO. So what happened is then, budgets get tighter, managers, are stretching the life of assets, and so that slowed, the process of getting to 20%. It had nothing to do with capabilities, technology, policies. It was all financial, right? And so that's coming back up, and people are getting a little bit more, managers are being a little bit more, flexible about it. And then, as we bring, the next thing we're going to do is look at the stipend again. Because see, I'm 100% convinced that, in the last 12 months we've added, 1,100 employees to the company, probably, right? Now, I'm 100% certain that some significant percentage of them, if we would have said, here's your new role, et cetera, here's your offer. By the way, you need to bring a laptop. Just like you need a pair of shoes. Okay? You need a calculator maybe, or something. Maybe you need a watch. I don't know, You need stuff that we don't own. All right? I'm sure that a ton of them would say, this is the coolest company alive. Like my kids. Dad, you wouldn't believe, this company made me a job offer. I get to use my own laptop, which they have. And, it could be a netbook, because, it doesn't have to be anything super special. It just has to be what they want and what empowers them. So I think that's where we're going. We see some companies, by the way, like insurance companies, consumer products companies, that rely on, consulting companies that rely on massive amounts of college recruiting to, they have a funnel system, right? Survival of the fittest, right? And so how do they get the best talent in the top? That's always the magic. So that when it winnows down, you get the best cream, from the crop. So, we see them thinking about and actually doing, in some cases, a signing bonus that equals your choice of like a Mac, or you choose from this little catalog. It doesn't ever hit your it doesn't hit your balance sheet. It's part of that process. And what we've noticed, we give people $2,100. They spend almost $3,000 on what they buy. They do have to have a 3-year service agreement. It's required, And if you don't do it, you don't play. Okay. And by the way, if you don't, at Citrix, if you don't kind of follow rules, then we're not the place for you. So, it's not that complicated, actually. And so they buy a better device. They last longer. They take better care of them. I mean, it's just amazing, kind of what happens when it doesn't have a Citrix asset tag on it. So it's been a fabulous experience. And we're just we don't have like all the technology we want to make it really easy for you to press the button. So, we work in the layers. So there are certain types of organizations that are more leading edge, have a bigger reward in such a program, like some of the examples I gave, and we'll just keep making it better, so more and more are possible.
How have you dealt with, let me rewind a bit. My assumption is, someone brings their PC, they've got, traditionally before was their desktop, they probably had a whole bunch of published apps to access. The data was stored in the data center or wherever it is. But you're probably going to have a situation where people take data offline because they're not connected.
That's right.
Right. So we come to a situation, and while that person's employed with the company, we're all great friends and we're all sharing data, and then we have a separation.
Yep.
Now,
What do you do?
What I would do now is I would say, thank you, can I have that?
Turn the whole bubble, the whole brick in.
Can I have this?
Yeah.
And everything, your access card and all that.
Yeah.
How do you deal with that?
I just, love that you asked that question. Okay, so I'll show you the idea, all right? And it's in the it's in the products as well. All right, so let's take your laptop. All right, and this is my laptop. Okay, now, when the expression about company, like they're like fish, after 3 days they stink. It's like you just don't want outsiders in your sort of place, even if they're family, for that long. So we have a philosophy and strategy around non-invasiveness and what I like to call dynamic footprints. And you create dynamic footprints with technologies like virtualization, isolation, and layering. Okay, so what we want is a bubble on this laptop that has apps and data that's plumbed through the network, right, to obviously the gateway, okay, shameless promotion, right, to then, your app cloud, okay? Now remember, in this app cloud, you can host the app in terms of run it remotely, or you can stream the app, as in push it down locally, okay? Now, what's interesting about this bubble is you can encrypt it, okay? And you can also, sort of in between here, I'd write, you can't read this, I create what we call a whitelist. So when I go to Citrix Receiver and I pick the apps that you published for that, and that's my laptop, okay, example, then the whitelist, and then part of the service is creating this encrypted space and whitelisting the apps so that the data that they create, as in read and write, can only live there, okay? And then obviously you get, with remote wipe and lock, okay? When, you're finished, you remote wipe and lock it. And obviously the security you can enforce here, two-factor, et cetera. So what I'm doing is I'm moving my security model. So like maybe in my laptop, I don't want any login on it. It's mine, right? But this, you get to say, no, you log in, it's two-factor, and it opens the encrypted space and access to this, right? So you still get to do all of that. And then when the employees, leaves, you kill it.
So you're essentially leasing a portion of the data storage on that device, and when you move out, you take all the
and
stuff.
connecting the apps to the data. Okay? And so, the follow me data lives in this bubble. Okay, the follow me apps live in this bubble. And and you're controlling the policies around them, But, everything that happens outside of this is mine. Because at some point, here's what happens. When it's easy for me to put on the chart, my life, line, my work. please. Okay, can't really do it, right? So this is where policies and all have to be sort of examined to figure out what has to be in here and what doesn't have to be in here, right? And because you end up needing this line because the technologies to truly blur this in a way that users want, like some of the stuff that our colleagues are doing around, I put another VM on this, etc. We don't believe in that. You could use this as a BYO, but that's not, you didn't hear me talk about this as BYO. This is end client stuff. You know, I mean, there are better ways to do BYO. You could do it because a VM, you know, it looks just like that on Zen client. You know, and this could be the one that synchronizes and comes from the data center, and this other one could be Lion that I bought the Mac or Windows 8, whatever. So, really doesn't matter. But think of this, backup, encryption, all the things that we try to do to secure this stuff. All that stuff ruins the user experience, encourages people not to do it, all right, and massively expensive, and it's using a blunderbuss on a fly, right? It's like, why encrypt DLLs? Why back up DLLs, as an example? So it's sort of like getting minimalist about the footprint, leasing it, encrypting it, backing it up, layering it. So this ring cube technology, think of that, that's creating a layer in there, okay, that is connected to the head end that leaves the rest of the space to be personal. Because, I suppose at Citrix, if I, order a stapler, someone will get a stapler and it'll come to my desk. But it'll be different from the stapler that I would pick at home Office Depot, right? It's like, does anyone really care what stapler I use? I don't think so, right? So it's sort of like getting minimalist about the footprint, leasing it, encrypting it, backing it up, layering it. So this ring cube technology, think of that, that's creating a layer in there, okay, that is connected to the head end that leaves the rest of the space to be personal. Because, I suppose at Citrix, if I, order a stapler, someone will get a stapler and it'll come to my desk. But it'll be different from the stapler that I would pick at home Office Depot, right? It's like, does anyone really care what stapler I use? I don't think so, right? So there are certain things, but how does this product get defined? Based upon the needs of these folks, all right? This is why everything's so complicated, and why Apple says, you know what, if you're here or there, buy a PC. That's for you, right? But we're here, all right? So this is this sort of new world. So, so my 2 cents is, well, look, we'll do 3 things. This will be the lowest cost, easiest to use, and we'll save a lot of money, and then the money we save, we can spend it on these. Whenever I hear someone say, like, what's the state of the project? We're collecting requirements. I want to dive under my desk, because collecting requirements is this process. That leads you to this problem of complexity, because you're trying to satisfy, that's why you're collecting, right? And so I say, like when we went to Salesforce, when we need to change our Salesforce automation tool, I said to Paul, Paul, let's do it differently this time, all right? Let's do it, because collecting requirements is a deductive process, right? If I get all this data, somehow, I'll be able to deduce from that what the right answer is, kind of build it up. It's like, let's start with the answer, salesforce.com, and test that instead of, and that's an inductive statement, right? It worked like a charm. We did the project, the whole cycle in a fraction of the time, and, we brought it to people and they said, well, it doesn't do this, this, and that. Is that important? Not really. Well, maybe someday. Or is it that important? What if it takes 2 years to get those things and you can have all this other stuff in a year or 6 months or whatever it was? So it was a really interesting sort of flipping it over to go inductive, because we're trained to be deductive. Anyway, I'm preaching and rambling now, but so we're trying to actually do these kinds of things more and more and more with our products and policies, and so that we can help you. Hopefully that helps a little bit, right? Other comments or? We need it's not Miller time, but it's getting to be Miller time.
It's always Miller time.
It's always Miller time here, I'm sure, yeah. Yeah.
Any other questions?
Well, great. We'll be here through lunch, et cetera. And, once again, thank you for your business. Thank you for your trust and confidence, for coming out today and spending a big chunk of your day with us, and the great discussion and questions. And, look forward to more and to coming back if you'll have me. Thank you. Thank you.